Hello, and welcome to another episode of Easing the Badger. I'm Will,
I'm Alex.
And I am Flint.
and today we are covering chapters 15, 16, and 17 of The Eye of the World by Robert Jordan. So I don't know about y'all, but my chapter was a doozy this time.
Mine was relatively short, but it felt like it had like nothing important, but also lots of important stuff in it. So it was one of those when it comes to, like, summarizing. You're like, is this important? Do I need to keep this in?
Mine was the same, but it's like the chapters seem long, but then every time I'm just getting into what's happening, the chapter ends, so then I just have to wait until the next one,
Right.
which is fine, I guess. Keeps me wanting to read, which is always a good thing.
Yeah.
See, mine is tied for the longest chapter in the book, and it's also like 90% dialogue. So it's kind of
That
we'll
sucks.
yeah.
Yeah, have fun summarizing that in a way that's not just repeating all of the dialogue.
That's just
Uh-huh.
not reading the whole chapter.
I did
Uh-huh.
my best, but let's get into 8.5 pages of notes here.
Yeah, that's how I felt about my last chapter, though. I was like, I swear, like, it was just all the dialogue that I was quoting.
Alrighty, so jumping into it, I've got chapter 15. It's titled Strangers and Friends. And the icon is a new one. It is a sunburst, which represents the White Cloaks. Fun new element there.
Ooh.
So Rand is waking up with a nightmare hangover and grumpily drags himself out of bed. He's sore, he's got a headache, and his friends let him sleep in well into the morning without waking him up to go exploring the city. He freshens up and gets dressed, strapping on his dad's sword while he convinces himself that he's totally not cosplaying a badass right. Rand hurries downstairs to the kitchens to find some breakfast, but pauses at the doorway to eavesdrop on Master Fitch having some sort of argument with the cook, Sarah, about her cat doing too good of a job and making customers complain. He waits it out, and eventually Fitch soothes Sarah enough that he can leave her be, at which point she invites Rand in for some bread and cheese and milk. She lets him know that the rest of his companions, all but one who said he didn't feel well, had left for the day. As he tucks into his simple breakfast, Sarah keeps chattering away about the fight he overheard. My Siri's a good cat, he is, but it's not like him to leave so many dead rats lying around. And all with the backs broken, too. Rand is gagged. He asks her about it, but she says never you mind and keeps yammering away as he mechanically finishes eating. When Rand emerges into the common room of the Stag and Lion, he's awed by how much bigger and more grandly decorated it is than the Wine Spring Inn, and every man in the common room was focused on one thing: Tom Maryland. He was perched atop a table telling a grand tale of adventure of the great hunt for the Horn of Valir, which will summon the heroes of the ages from beyond the grave to battle on the side of the light. Rand recalls Tom explaining when they were traveling that there are three types of voice a gleeman might tell tales in: high chant, plain chant, and common. The latter was what he did now, though Rand knew he did so begrudgingly. Realizing he won't be able to ask Tom for any advice, and noticing that people were staring at him as they passed him, he decides to go check on whichever friend of his it was that stayed behind. In the room, he finds Perrin laying in bed, still not dressed, looking miserable. I heard you weren't feeling well, Rand said, but if you want some more sleep, I can leave you be. I might never sleep again, Perrin said. He tells Rand that he had a bad dream and he hadn't been able to get back to sleep afterward, and Matt had made fun of him this morning when he told him, but Perrin knew Matt had had bad dreams too, from all the tossing and turning and muttering in his sleep that he had been doing. Rand says, Did he kill a rat? And Perrin's like, Fuck, you had the same dream? Think Matt did too? He did laugh, but it sounded forced, and he looked funny about it. Maybe he did, Rand said, felt guilty that he was relieved to have not been the only one afflicted. I was going to ask Tom for advice. Do you think we should tell Moiraine? You know the stories about Aes Sedai, Perrin grumbles. Do you think we can trust Tom either? Rand, if we make it home and I ever say anything about leaving Emmons Field, even so much as to go to Watch Hill, kick my ass, okay? Rand laughs and says, Don't talk like that. Of course we'll make it home. Come on, get up. Let's go see the city. Taren refuses, and Rand says, Your loss. Think of how many times we used to talk about seeing Bearlawn one day. But Perrin ignores him and just covers his eyes with his arm. On his way out, Rand notices that his headache has gotten worse. He's aware Tom won't be free for hours yet, so he decides to go looking for Matt. When he gets out to the stables, it's deserted except for the bouncer, Much. Rand tries to be courteous, but Much ignores him and walks away. As he departs the stables and makes his way to the street, Rand is immediately overwhelmed. He's never seen so many people in one place in his life, and the smells and noises are more than he can handle as well. He immediately turns around, getting cold feet, and walks back toward the inn, but continues to dither and thinks that staying here with Perrin is no way to spend his only day in the city. He pulls up a barrel and takes a seat, trying to decide what it is he wants to do. Every now and then, Much pops his head out and glares at Rand. He's not sure what to make of this. Does he hate country folk? Or maybe he was embarrassed that Fish let them in after he tried to chase them off. What if he's a dark friend? Suddenly, Rand hears a woman with a low voice say, A farm boy with a heron-marked sword. That's almost enough to make me believe anything. What kind of trouble are you in, down country boy? Rand was startled. It was that girl he had seen talking to Moiraine last night, the one with the short cropped hair. You are Rand, right? My name is Min. Rand replies, Trouble? Who's in trouble? Certainly not me, no sirree. I'm just a simple lad from the Two Rivers. There's never been any trouble there. Min grins and says, Yeah, I've heard all about you wooden-headed sheep herders from the Two Rivers. All smiles and politeness on the outside, but underneath, you're tough as gnarled roots. Prod too deep, and you'll dig up stone. But the stone isn't buried too deep in you and your friends. Moiraine didn't tell me much, but she doesn't have to. I see what I see. I do not know any woman by that name, Rand says, sticking to the script. And Min says, Fine then. Mistress Alice. Calm down, no one can hear us. She told me the truth, though I guess she had to since I could clock her immediately. I see things. Pieces of the pattern, as she puts it. Sounds too grand for me. I just see things, and sometimes I know what they mean. I look at a man and a woman who've never even talked to one another, and I know they'll marry. And they do. That sort of thing. She wanted me to look at you. All of you together. Rand shivered. And what did you see? When you're all in a group, sparks swirling around you. Thousands of them. And a big shadow, darker than midnight. It's so strong, I almost wonder why everybody can't see it. The sparks are trying to fill the shadow, and the shadow is trying to swallow the sparks. She shrugged. You are all tied together in something dangerous, but I can't make any more of it. All of us, Rand muttered. Egwene too? But they weren't after. I mean. Min did not seem to notice his slip. The girl? She's part of it. And the Gleeman. All of you. You're in love with her. He stared at her. I can tell that even without seeing any images. She loves you too, but she's not for you, or you for her. Not the way you both want. What's that supposed to mean? When I look at her, I see the same as when I look at Mistress Alice. Other things, things I don't understand, too, but I know what that means. She won't refuse it. This is all foolishness, Rand said uncomfortably. His headache was fading to numbness. His head felt packed with wool. He wanted to get away from this girl and the things she saw. And yet, what do you see when you look at the rest of us? All sorts of things, Min said. with a grin as if she knew what he really wanted to ask. The war? Uh, Master Andra has 7 ruined towers around his head, and a babe in a cradle holding a sword, and she shook her head. Men like him, you understand, always have so many images around, they crowd one another. The strongest images around the Gleeman are a man, not him, juggling fire, and the White Tower, and that doesn't make any sense at all for a man. The strongest things I see about the big curly-haired fellow are a wolf and a broken crown, and trees flowering all around him. And the other one, a red eagle, an eye on a balanced scale, a dagger with a ruby, a horn, and a laughing face. There are other things, but you see what I mean. This time I can't make up or down of any of it. She waited then, still grinning, until he finally cleared his throat and asked, "What about me?" Her grin stopped just short of outright laughter. The same kind of things as the rest. A sword that isn't a sword, a golden crown of laurel leaves, a beggar's staff, you pouring water on sand, a bloody hand and a white-hot iron, 3 women standing over a funeral bier with you on it, black rock wet with blood. All right, he broke in uneasily. You don't have to list it all. Most of all, I see lightning around you. Some striking at you, some coming out of you. I don't know what any of it means except for one thing. You and I will meet again. She gave him a quizzical look, as if she did not understand that either. Why shouldn't we? He said. I'll be coming back this way on my way home. I suppose you will at that. Suddenly her grin was back, wry and mysterious, and she patted his cheek. But if I told you everything I saw, you'd be as curly-haired as your friend with the shoulders. He jerked back from her hand as if it were red hot. What do you mean? Do you see anything about rats? Or dreams? Rats? No. No rats. As for dreams, maybe it's your idea of a dream, but I never thought it was mine. He wondered if she was crazy, grinning like that. I have to go, he said, edging around her. I have to meet my friends. Go then, but you won't escape. He didn't exactly break into a run, but every step he took was quicker than the step before. Run if you want, she called after him. You can't escape from me. He ran, bumping into people as he did, but he didn't care. He kept running for several streets, but eventually he finally calmed down and shifted into tourist mode, staring up at all the buildings and vendors and everything around him. Few of the buildings were actually bigger than ones in Emmons Field, but they were nicer. He also stared at the people, comparing them to folks back home, but then he saw someone who caught his eye. A scrawny man with sunken eyes and a dirty face who looked like he had neither slept nor eaten in days, but Rand was sure. Master Fane, he called out, but the man took one look at Rand and panicked, scurrying away. Rand continued his pursuit, cornering him in an alleyway. Master Fane, it's me, Rand, from Emmons Field. We all thought the Trollocs took you. Fane flailed his hands and hissed, Don't mention them! Looking around frantically, he said, There are white cloaks about. They have no reason to bother us. Come on, let's go back to the inn. We can get you cleaned up. Everyone will be excited to see you. We all thought you were dead. Dead? No, not Pad Bane, he said, putting on airs of confidence, but they quickly deflated and he whined. They burned my wagon, and my horses are still locked up in that fat innkeeper's stable. I had to hurry out of there before I got my throat slit. It's not fair. Rand assured him his horses would be safe in Brand's stables, and that he was sure Moraine would help him get back to Emmons Field to retrieve them if he would just come back to the Stag and Lion with him. That's the Aes Sedai, right? Maybe. How long are you staying at this, what was it, Stag and Lion? We leave tomorrow, but what does that have to do with... You just don't know, standing there with your full belly in your nice bed. I've barely slept at all, and as for what I've eaten, but no, I don't want to be within miles of an Aes Sedai. Don't tell her you found me. Rand promised he wouldn't, but assured Fane there was no need to fear her. Maybe tomorrow? You won't forget your promise. You won't be letting her. I won't let her hurt you, he said, though how he could stop an Aes Sedai from doing what she wanted, he wasn't sure. She won't hurt me. No, she won't, 'cause I won't let her. And in a flash, he was gone. Rand chased after him, but before he could catch up, he wound up crashing directly into someone's back. Hey, watch it, he said, and Rand knew it was Matt. He sat up with a glare and said, You're really turning into a city boy, sleeping all morning and just running into people. He got up, cleaned himself off, and said, Listen, you'll never guess who I thought I just saw. And at the same time, they both said, Padden Fane. Hey, how'd you know? I was just talking to him, but he ran off. So Matt said, having seemed to finally remember to be cautious. They didn't get to him? I guess he must have been on the run, too. I dunno, but he seemed scared of Mistress Alice. He made me promise not to tell her he was here. Well, I won't spill, Matt says. I wish she didn't know where I was, either. Matt, did you have a dream last night about a dude killing a rat? You too. I guess Perrin must have as well, but I didn't want to talk about it this morning. Blood and ashes. Now we got dudes making us dream shit. I wish nobody knew where I was. There were dead rats all over the inn this morning. Their backs were broken. Rand felt sick and was surprised to consider seeing Moiraine for healing. What's happening to us, Rand? I don't know. I'm gonna ask Tom for advice on whether to tell anyone else. No, not her. Maybe him, but not her. Rand was surprised at the sharpness. So you believe him? He didn't have to say which him he meant. No, it's just the chances is all. If we tell her and he's lying, then maybe nothing happens, but maybe him just being in our dreams is bad enough. If we don't tell her, maybe we just have some more dreams, rats or no rats. That's better than... Remember the ferry? I say we keep quiet. Matt then declared they need to hurry back and make sure Perrin keeps quiet, lest he spill the beans about all of them, and darted off in a hurry, but came back when he realized Rand was just standing there, staring. What's wrong with you? I think I have a cold. Well, you can get some soup when you get back. Let's move. Matt kept chattering while they walked, but Rand felt like he was drifting the whole time. Soon he found himself telling Matt about Min. Matt liked the part about the ruby dagger, but wasn't so sure about the eye. He was skeptical about her abilities in general, but Rand said he believed her. Then Matt pointed out 3 men in breastplates and conical steel caps, burnished till they looked silver. Even their mail gleamed, and their long cloaks were pristine white with an embroidered golden sunburst on the left breast. They were heading in Rand and Matt's direction, but everyone else on the street seemed to pretend they did not see them. Do you think they're children of the light? Matt asked, which got him a glare from a passerby who scurried off in another direction. Rand nodded. Children of the light, not so affectionately known as White Cloaks, hated Aes Sedai with a passion. They also thought they knew what was right about everything and that everyone around them should hop when they said toad. They don't look like much to me. Kind of full of themselves, though, like Eward Conger. Always had his nose in the air, too. Then Matt got a mischievous twinkle in his eye. Remember when he fell off the wagon bridge and had to tramp home dripping wet? That took him down a peg for a month. Matt pointed out a cart near where the children were walking. Watch this, he said, then sprang into action. Rand knew he should do something to stop him, but he kinda wanted to see what Matt would do. He then appeared on a rooftop and fired fired a shot from his sling, knocking one of the stands from under the cart and sending barrels rolling down the alleyway in the path of the white cloaks. The three jumped out of the way of the barrels, but there was no avoiding the mud that now sullied their cloaks. A shop owner came out to fuss about the barrels, but one look at the muddy children, and he turned tail back into his shop. When Rand looked back up, Matt was nowhere to be seen, and he couldn't help but burst out laughing. Unfortunately, the entire street had cleared out by then, so it was just him and the white cloaks. "You find something funny, boy," taunted one of the children. Rand stopped laughing, looking around. "Fear the light got your tongue? Perhaps it was you who did this." Rand knew he should be hiding his sword, but found himself throwing his cloak back so it was in full view. "Shit happens," he said, "even to children of the light." "Oh, you think you're hot shit, huh?" said the white cloak, Lord Bornhold, when one of his compatriots pointed out he had a heron mark blade. "A bit young for that. You're not from around here, are you?" "Just got here," Rand said with a grin. "Know of a good inn?" "You avoid my questions," Bornhold snapped. "What evil is in you that you do not answer me?" His companions flanked him now, looking intimidating. Rand was buzzing. He knew he should be scared, but he wanted to laugh. He just stood there grinning and rocking on his heels, waiting to see what would happen next. The leader's face darkened. One of his companions bared a few inches of steel and said, "When the Children of Light asks you a question, you gray-eyed bumpkin, we expect answers, or—" He cut off as an arm reached out and stopped him, and Bornhold looked up the street. And in comes the popo, late as always, town watch in their steel caps and leather jerkins, carrying quarter-staves like they knew how to use them. "This town stands in the shadow," said the one who had drawn his sword, and then he shouted, "Bearlawn stands in the shadow of the Dark One!" Bornhold looked back at Rand. "Dark friends do not escape us, youngling, even in a town that stands in the shadow. We will meet again, mark my words." And with that, they were off, as though Rand had ceased to exist. The watch made their way past Rand, trailing the white cloaks at a distance. Rand still stood there grinning when Matt reappeared, saying, "You're not sick, you're crazy." All of a sudden, Rand snapped out of it and realized what he'd just done. He said, "Yeah, maybe we should get back." They headed toward the inn, but along the way ran into Tom in the streets, claiming he was just out to stretch his legs, but whenever anyone's eyes lingered on his patchy cloak, he'd shout, "One night only at the Stag and Lion." As they walked, Matt launched into telling Tom about their dreams, and the indecision about telling Moiraine. As soon as he mentioned the name Balsamon, though, Tom snatched the boys up into an alleyway and made sure no one was listening before berating them for using that name where anyone could hear, especially white cloaks. Tom seemed perplexed by their shared dream, but he bade them to continue and tell them every detail. Once they started listing off all the men that had been named as people used by the White Tower, Tom seemed to know who they were, but gave a vague non-answer when asked. He did assert that the men were certainly killed by the White Tower, but he couldn't fathom them being used by the Aes Sedai. Matt brings up mention of Luz Theron Kinslayer and Arthur Hawkwing, before asking what the Eye of the World is. Tom says it's a legend, similar to the Horn of Valir, and that young Borderlanders go hunting for it the same way men from Ilion do the Horn. "What do we do, Tom? Do we tell her? Maybe she could do something to stop the dreams," Rand said. "Maybe we won't like what she does," said Matt. Tom considered before saying, "Hold your peace. If you decide you must tell her eventually, you can. But once you do, you can't take it back. So let's wait a minute." "Wait a minute. The other boy. Do you think he's smart enough to keep from telling her?" "We were just heading back to warn him." "Then lights send it isn't too late," he said, and led the way back to the inn. They hurried back and arrived faster than Rand expected, just to run into Perrin leaving the inn as they got there. Perrin says he was coming to look for them, but the boys and Tom bowl him over and demand to know if he told anyone about the dream. He says he only just got out of bed like an hour ago and he gave himself a headache just thinking about it, much less talking about it. But never mind that. He had a reason to find them. Nynaeve is in the inn. Matt cursed, and Rand asked what she's doing here. The other boys looked at him like he's stupid. She came to find us, duh. And she's in there with Mistress Alice now, and it's so frigid it could snow. Yeah, how about we just not go inside, Matt said. My da says only a fool puts his hand inside a hornet's nest unless he absolutely has to. She can't make us go back, Rand said. Winter night should have been enough to convince her of that. I say we make her see the truth of it. Matt says, yeah, have you ever tried to get her to see something she doesn't want to see? 'Cause I sure have, and let me tell you, we're better off staying out till night and sneaking in then. From my observation of the young woman, Tom said, she isn't likely to stop until she has her say. And if she doesn't get it soon, she might bring the type of attention on us we definitely don't want. That brought them all up short. They exchanged glances, drew deep breaths, and marched inside as if to face Trollocs. That's the end of chapter 15. My mouth is frothing after that.
I bet.
I didn't.
Take a sip of water.
I didn't look at the time when you started, but we are now 26 minutes into recording. So
Oh. Yeah, that was
That's
a lot.
Oof,
that
ouch.
was a long one.
Alright, so things happened. People talked.
Quite so. Before we start,
Pranks were pulled.
I want everybody listening to say thank you to Will for all of the work that he does for this podcast.
Yes,
If I
Will
had to
does
do it,
our
it would not
editing.
happen.
Will does our editing. He is our producer. He does the longest, worst chapters.
If I had to do it, it wouldn't happen.
Now,
Oh.
zero motivation to do any work. But I know Will's been wanting to do this podcast for a really long time. And I'm really glad that we were able to get it off the ground, if only to see how happy it makes you.
Oh, yeah, side note that I forgot to mention at the beginning, this is our first episode recording after launching episode 1.
Yes,
Yay!
we launched episode 1 a week ago today, right?
Yes,
Indeed.
we did. So far, I've only heard from one person who's listened, but we got good reviews from that one person. Shout out,
We'll
Hillary.
Boop boop.
We'll take it.
Yep. Coral with no compliments. All right, so chapter 15 I think is actually kind of a fun one. I get a kick out of the White Cloak interaction personally.
Oh, it's
I mean,
prime Matt shenanigans.
100%. And we will be circling back to that in my chapter. Because of something that is said. But it just with their attitude alone, like this is the least of what they deserve, and you know what I mean?
Yeah. It's what they deserve.
It's exactly.
They're
The only way it could have been better is the only way it could have been better is if those barrels had been full of refuse.
Agreed.
Flint, are you still keeping track of named females?
You know what? I should be.
Because
A new one appeared, and she is immediately taking a man to task, as she should. It's me about my cats. Like, nobody is allowed to badmouth my cats but me. Shut up. My cat is perfect, actually. How dare you?
In this house, we stand men.
yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I make this point later during my chapter, but it's so funny that all she does is make Rand uncomfortable, and yet he is still concerned about her.
Right,
Like,
right.
I said, well, I guess that is his type. He does like women who unsettle him, I guess.
It's a pattern.
But yeah, so yeah, that's why I asked those, because I just remembered that I didn't remember Flint bringing up noting Min's entrance.
Mm-hmm.
Even No, but she's not named at the end of the last chapter when we walk in, is she?
No.
No, it's just
It's
noted
this
that
one.
there's a girl with short hair talking to Moraine.
Yeah, that's what it
Maureen
was.
had asked, yeah, Maureen had asked about Min, but we never actually had the person with her
Right.
name.
And it's
So I
not like
assumed
you
that's who
could.
it was, and then I had that confirmed. But yeah,
Right. Yeah. And if it's not named in the last chapter, that's what I was thinking about is like, oh, Flint didn't mention this person and noting it, but that's because she wasn't named until now. So that's on me.
I
Never
should continue to
mind.
make notes about that. I don't know. I think she's probably the first one besides Sarah
Oh,
in
Sarah.
in a good few chapters, I think.
Yep. Yep. I think you're right. So what did you think about the whole chapter, Flint? Anything you noted?
Mostly I enjoyed reading about how Rand is like functioning through a hangover. Like that drink really fucked him up. Um
Right.
which like I get, you know. And he's
Yeah.
just trying to like it seems like he's not really in control of himself,
Hmm.
possibly. Especially when he antagonizes the White Cloaks.
Right.
I think I noted at one point. I'm like, is he being possessed? Was the question that I
Right.
asked.
Because it's like his body was acting and his brain was like, no, you're not supposed to be doing that.
Right,
As
like he
he's
was
like
separate from the process.
throwing, yeah,
Especially with how hard he comes out of it after it all ends.
Yeah, Matt is like, what the
it's
fuck, dude? And he's like, what was I doing?
it's almost like he went into like a fugue state.
Mm-hmm.
And it's
Yeah.
interesting because yeah, like his body was acting on its own, but we can't say it was acting from like muscle memory,
Mm-hmm.
right? So where does it come from?
The impulse. He was
Yeah.
singing "Not Myself" tonight, perhaps.
Yeah. I do appreciate that in this chapter, Matt learns to shut the fuck up.
Finally,
Like he actually stops himself
Yeah, at least a little
actively.
bit.
Like he catches himself and he backtracks, corrects himself. And every time I cuz like I mentioned, I don't know if you kept this in the last one, but I do our 3 chapters and then I usually do my chapter 2 more times. And sometimes I'll do all 3 of them a couple times. But every time I read that for this chapter, I was just like fucking finally. Took him long enough.
Yep.
I am also quite interested in Min and how her power works. It's very interested in that. Like she sees things. It's almost maybe like clairvoyance, I guess.
Uh-huh.
I
It
mean, by the
seems,
literal definition of clairvoyance, yeah.
yeah, yeah. She looks at people and sees images. She says, I think she says Maureen says she sees the pattern, and she doesn't necessarily think that it's that. But I am very interested. It makes me think of like the Cassandra curse. You know,
Yeah.
it's you know more than you should, and you try to tell people, and they don't listen to you. So then you just have to live with all of the knowledge, and no matter what you do, it kind of just happens anyway.
Right?
Yeah,
Um,
and she says that sometimes she knows what things mean and sometimes she doesn't, but when she knows what it means, it happens.
She's always right. Yeah.
So, I mean, do we want to go through and like talk about the different things she says she sees?
If not all
sure.
of it, there are a few that I find really interesting.
Yeah, I have again because I've never read these before. I have no frame of reference for what any of this means, but it is interesting. So yeah,
Yeah,
we can talk.
I'm very curious like what you might could extrapolate from them.
Yeah.
What predictions you might make. So, I mean, the most obvious one we've got the sparks filling the darkness and the darkness swallowing the sparks.
Hmm.
Obviously, they're all involved in the clash between the light and the shadow.
Right.
That's pretty
Yeah.
self-explanatory.
Yeah, I thought about Maureen's explanation of Sidene and Sidar and sort
Hmm.
of how they push against each
Hmm.
other, and specifically
Yep.
because Sidene is tainted. That's what it made me think of.
I
Yep.
like I
Whatever they
I like
are,
that.
whoever they are, you know, not necessarily that they're like wheel turners or they have more threads maybe attached to them. And that's the sparks.
Possible.
I'm not sure, but it is interesting.
The list of stuff that was given. Obviously, having read the books, I now understand almost all of it.
Yeah, this is a part that I definitely want to talk to you separately
Yes,
about,
we
like,
will
with it being
100%.
your first reread.
There's a couple, and I think it's one or two, maybe three. I think it's two of them for Rand that I still for some reason can't place, but all the other ones I get. And one of my favorite ones is one of Perrin's, because it's just hearing what Min calls it, even not knowing what comes along. Even the first time I read it, I that one stuck with me, was the Broken Crown.
Mm.
It like just calling it the Broken Crown sounds super symbolic to me. And I remember it sticking with me the entire time I read the series the first time. But was there anything that stood out with you, Flint?
Looking at it again, she says about Lan that she sees a baby in a cradle holding a sword, as as quite interesting. I assume the
Yeah,
baby
that's
is
some
not him,
imagery there.
although it wouldn't surprise
Baby
me.
be like,
It
Viva
wouldn't
la
surprise me if it was.
revolution.
Right. That's the the ideal child. And uh the things about Matt, I think the red eagle, the eye on a balance scale, a dagger with a ruby, all of that. It's all of it seems really like it's really evocative, like the
Yep.
way that she talks about it. Yeah, I don't know that I know enough about anything to try to make predictions based off of it, unless it's like that he will get a dagger with a ruby. I don't know. Maybe,
Or is it symbolic?
possibly. Although,
Does he give his
actually,
blood for something?
yeah, I am interested because it's the animals. She sees a wolf for Perrin and an eagle for Matt, and it would be something if it's like familiars or like shape shifting.
Uh huh.
That would be cool. But then uh, Rand doesn't have one. It was I did laugh
That.
when he asked her what she saw and she started listing things and he said, "Okay, that's enough." Like, babe, you asked. You asked. She's answering your question. I don't.
Literally, like you
Yeah.
asked.
This whole conversation has been optional. So
You hit subscribe. I like thinking about what you said about her seeing the animals, because to me, I kind of associate that with the elements in the one power. The red eagle could symbolize air and wind, and the wolf could symbolize a connection with the earth.
it's true. I hadn't thought about that.
You see what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
maybe it has something to do with the one power.
She also brings up Rand and Egwene's relationship.
Mm-hmm.
She is
Uh,
not for you,
at least
Or
or
you
not in
for
the
her.
way
what
you
you
want.
want.
That's how devastating, but also, ma'am, who the fuck are you? Mind your business. What the shit? Why did you come into my house, flip my coffee table, and then insult me to my face? What is it?
You asked me
That's
to come
crazy.
into your house, flip your
Yeah,
coffee
that's
table,
yes.
and
He
insult you to
invited
your
her in.
face.
Yeah, he did. He did do that. Again, none of this had to happen. None of this conversation had to go the way that
Nope.
it did. But holy shit, ouch! And it's sort of because the way that they've been positioned against each other this whole time has been interesting, especially if she's supposed to be like the love interest. That's not really the vibe that I get. It's like they both just kind of dance around each other a lot, I guess, which can happen in any kind of relationship context. It doesn't have to be a romantic one. But then for men to just kind of lay it out like this, like the love that you have for each other is not it's not the right kind or it's not enough, I guess. Devastating. Devastating read.
Or both.
Yeah, or both.
Oh, Perrin's news that Nynaeve has arrived. What?
Yes.
Right.
Where the hell she
Jump
come
scare.
from?
Hello.
Jump scare.
Girl, what?
Did you think we would be seeing her again, or if so,
No.
then so soon?
No. That was not even on my radar at all.
You didn't,
And Taryn says, "You think a thing like a sunken boat could stop her?" I was like, you know what? Period. You know what? You're right.
literally.
Hey,
She
girl.
glares at the water and it freezes under her feet.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. The wind carries her across.
She's got a braid. The woman's Elsa.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm just saying.
The Taryn never bothered her anyway, I guess.
Right.
She said, "Here I am.
That's
Surprise,
the title
bitch.
of this episode.
I bet you thought you'd see the last of me. But here she is. Hey, girl."
she How'd you get across the river? She tracked the guy down.
Mm-hmm.
Is that in your chapter where she says it? Or is it mine?
Yeah, it's at the very end. It says
Yeah.
she bullied him into finding a boat big enough for her and her horse and rowing her across himself.
With only like one of his helpers.
Right.
Like,
She,
Amazing.
no, get
peak
me across
wisdom
right
right
now.
there. That is peak wisdom behavior.
Uh-huh.
Has
That's
to be.
naive
In order to
core, I fear. Yeah.
for sure, but also I feel like in order to be a wisdom, you kind of have to be like that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And Nynaeve has to be even more because she's so young and has to prove herself, which we have discussed many times. But yeah, that's peak Nynaeve right there. I bet she dragged him to the river by the ear.
Mm-hmm. I believe it. Where is
Or
that? Where is that cutaway gag? That's what I want to
thumped
see.
him with her stick the whole way.
Oh
like,
my god.
Yeah. Yeah. Show me that like a Family Guy cutaway gag. That's what I want to see. Hard cut
Please.
to her forcing him to oar her across the river.
I just picture them in this tiny little rowboat with like this horse standing barely balancing in the middle, and
Right,
then
yeah.
sitting at the
Yep.
other end, one leg crossed over the other, arms folded, just scowling at him as he rolls.
Mm. Yep. Love it. Love it. Hey girl, here you are, I guess. And then Tom says, you might want to go talk to her because people will pay attention to her and we don't want that. And they're like,
Yeah.
you right.
They're like, oh shit, better two-step it.
Off to the executioner.
Time to ski fucking daddle.
Also, what do we think of Tom advising the boys not to confide in Moiraine?
This is very in character for Tom because it fits right in with all the advice and everything he said to Rand back at the Wine Spring Inn before Rand asked Moiraine for help with Tam. Tam. Tom,
Mhm.
Tam. Before, right, so that feels very in character for him. It feels it emotionally, it feels exactly like the exact same scene, and where that advice is coming from, it's coming from the same place.
Yeah, no, I mean, you said what I was going to say. It seems absolutely in character for him to be like, no, actually, you might not want to tell her that. But it is very good advice, I think. Not specifically because of Maureen, but like in general.
Yeah,
Like to say that once you say something, you can't unsay it. Like
right. You can't put
I
it back in
think
the
Yeah,
that
box.
that's a lesson that a lot of people could stand to learn more.
right.
I think that's very good advice.
It is, but I think it also stems like we've seen he has at least some sort of inherent distrust of Aes Sedai, right? And then
Yeah,
he goes
from
and
day one. Mhm.
he goes and he gives this advice, and he says what he says to Rand at the Wine Spring. He says what he says to the boys in this chapter. But we also learn from Min that the White Tower is one of the visions she sees for him.
Exactly.
Right?
Mhm.
Which is
So
unusual for a man
for
in
a
her
man.
experience.
Right.
So what are
Because
his
the
ties?
White Tower is the home of the Aes Sedai, as they've already established. So what? It's
Yeah.
interesting.
And
So maybe he has an actual reason other than just the stories.
Tom isn't a warder. It would make sense for a warder, but
Yeah, he could have an actual reason. He could have a history with them because Min's vision seemed. I'm gonna stop that sentence right fucking there. I'm gonna
Gotta
stop
be
that sentence
careful.
right there.
Gotta be careful.
It wouldn't have been a large spoiler, but it would have been a spoiler. But it feels like we can all assume that her visions are future tellings because, as far as we know, Matt doesn't have a ruby dagger, for example. But like, maybe he gets incarcerated by the White Tower,
Possibly.
right?
It could be any number of things because we don't really know much. And this is also, I guess, a really good world building thing to sort of have something that exists that everybody knows about, but really only the reader can access through superstition.
Right.
Um, that's really, again, part of like what really makes a world tangible, I think. But it sure is frustrating to try to figure anything out. I just gotta wait and see, I guess. Which
Mm-hmm.
I'm willing to do, but like, god damn it, what else?
Son of a bitch.
Yeah, here I am again.
So, chapter 16 is titled The Wisdom, and its icon is like this beautiful little vine with some leaves on it, and it symbolizes several things. In this case, it's one of the symbols for Nynaeve. And yeah, okay. So, they in the inn with Perrin in the lead, and Rand is following them. Like, he's like towards the end of the line, and Min grabs him and pulls him aside. Now, Tom makes a wisecrack about not having time for fooling around with girls, basically, and Min retorts by telling him to go juggle something.
Ah.
Rand insists he really doesn't have time, and she's like, I don't either, but in a low voice, describes Nynaeve and her arrival, and finishes by telling Rand that she's a part of it too. He says that's impossible, and Min asks if he knows her, to which he says yes. She then goes on to tell him that she saw sparks clearer and sharper around her and Mistress Alice today when she arrived than yesterday when she needed 3 or 4 of them in their group together to see the sparks at all. She finishes by saying, quote, "You're all in more danger today than yesterday since she came." End quote. So, assuring Min that Nynaeve won't hurt them, he slips away from her and rejoins the others that are waiting for him. Mat asks what she said, and Rand tells him Nynaeve is a part of it. Mat complains about it being all the bad luck they've had since Winter Night, and of course she's a part of it, and comparing Nynaeve's arrival as being worse than having the White Cloaks around. Which, fair. So they reach the door to the room where they had dinner in the night before, and Perrin stops, hesitant to go in, because Nynaeve has put the fear of God into all of them. So they shore up their courage, and they march in. And Rand, being the last one to enter, closes the door with reluctance. Probably because he's now got no escape if Nynaeve wants to murder them all. In the room, Nynaeve and Moiraine are sitting at opposite ends of the table, staring one another down, and The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly by Ennio Morricone is playing in the background. Lan is posted up at the mantle of the fireplace trying to get warm because the two women have turned the room into a walk-in freezer. And Egwene has her back literally up against the wall, hood pulled all the way forward, trying to hide her hair that is no longer in a braid. So, after a moment's hesitation, Rand shows what I consider balls of absolute tungsten by either doing something very smart or very stupid, which is he approaches the table and sits down smack in the middle between the two of them. Brave, stupid boy. There's a moment of absolute stillness in the room, and then slowly and reluctantly, the other three make their way to the middle of the table to sit with Rand. Tom, wisely, remains by the door. Now that everyone has arrived, Lan convinces Nynaeve to take a cup of wine that she apparently has refused before. He points out that she watched the innkeeper bring it in, and there was no way they could have spiked it with her in front of them. So, reluctantly, she does take it. He then goes on to express his interest in how she found them. And even longer story short, Nynaeve isn't dumb. She knew that Baerlon was really the only place they could be heading, and she's an expert tracker as taught by her father, assuring Lan that no, he wasn't careless, she's just better. He does approve of this, and says that her dad taught her well, and she kind of hides her face in her cup, and Rand realizes she's blushing. So Moiraine moves the conversation along by saying that she has questions for Nynaeve, and as she has answered her freely enough, it is now her turn. Nynaeve turns on her and says that Moraine's answers were a sack of bullshit, and as far as she can see, 4 young people have been carried off by an Aes Sedai. Lan snaps at her to watch her tongue, as that isn't known here, and she retorts, wanting to know why she should and why she should help hide who they are, that she's only there to take the 4 back home. Tom now speaks up, telling Nynaeve that if she wants them to ever see their home again, she should care, because there are people in Baerlon that would kill Moiraine and Lan for who they are, alluding to the White Cloaks and how just being associated with those two is enough for them to find the rest guilty. This is a quote from Tom. "You wouldn't like the way they ask questions, especially when the White Tower is involved. White cloak questioners assume you're guilty before they start, and they have only one sentence for that kind of guilt. He finishes by saying they think they know the truth already, they just want a confession. They're not looking for the truth, those questioners. They just want you to confess. Nynaeve says that's just one more reason to take them away from Moraine and Lan because being with them is unsafe. Rand now pipes up that they can't leave, and the others join him at the same time, but like a second later. So because he was the first one to speak, he's the one who gets to go on explaining about the Trollocs hunting them. Nynaeve says he sounded just like Tam and proceeds to tell them that he had himself carried to the village meeting to convince everyone there of the same thing. She then accuses Moraine of somehow beguiling his mind because usually he has more sense than that. She tells him that ultimately they agreed the four needed to be found but couldn't agree on who was to go. Matt asks about his father, and she tells him that he was mostly concerned that Matt would try his shenanigans with Outlanders and get his ass beat for it. Perrin then says that he expects Master Luhan wasn't too pleased with his leaving either. Nynaeve gives him a sarcastic reply, and then says she expected this idiocy from the three boys, but that others should have better judgment, which causes Egwene to lean back in her chair, hiding behind the larger Perrin and saying she left a note. Nynaeve gets 2 words out into a tirade about a note when Moraine cuts her off, saying they still needed to speak. And all of that at the same time that Rand begins to speak. And then this is the direct quote from the book. If Rand could have stopped himself, he would have, but the words poured out as if it were a floodgate he had opened instead of his mouth. All this is very well, but it doesn't change anything. We can't go back, we have to go on. He spoke more slowly towards the end, and his voice sank, so he finished in a whisper, with the Wisdom and Aes Sedai both looking at him. It was the sort of look he would receive if he came on women talking women's circle business, the sort that said he had stepped in where he did not belong. He sat back, wishing he was someone else. So, Moraine says that they're safer with her than back home, and Nynaeve counters by saying that Moraine's the one who brought them to where the White Cloaks were in the first place. Moraine says that the White Cloaks are not the real fucking problem, but the Dark One is. But that by being able to touch a true source, she is protected and can extend that protection to others around her. Nynaeve says that Moraine is standing up strawman, and Moraine then tells Egwene to take the others and leave her and the Wisdom alone for a while. That feels very last straw for Moraine. So they all leave, and that includes Lan. He steps out into the hall and guards the door so the others don't try to listen. Tom leaves, saying that he's got better things to do, and warns the others to remember what he said. Egwene asks what that was about, and Perrin and Matt reply that he gave them some advice about not opening their mouths. Lost in his own thoughts, Rand waits in the hall for the conference to end, not noticing that the others had left. And eventually Nynaeve comes out and turns down the hall towards him as Lan goes inside the room. She approaches him and indicates the sword, commenting that it seems to fit him now, though she'd like it better if it didn't. She then observes that he's grown. He makes a joke about, only growing in a week, he doesn't believe it, and asks her if she has been convinced and if she's coming with them. She denies it, using her duties as a wisdom as the excuse to return home, and how she still hopes to make them see sense and go with her. She makes a comment about how if Moraine wasn't mixed up in all of this, but sort of drops the sentence, and Rand says she sounds like she does in fact believe them, and then proceeds to ask what happened at the village meeting. She avoids the answer, and Rand pushes a little bit more before she replies. As I said, the meeting was a shambles. Everybody agreed someone had to be sent after you, but the village split into 2 groups. One wanted you rescued, though there was considerate argument over how that was to be done, considering you were with the likes of her. He was glad she was remembering to watch what she said. The others believed Tam, he said, because of course he had to interrupt. Not exactly, but they thought you shouldn't be among strangers either, especially not with someone like her. Either way, though, almost every man wanted to be one of the party. Tam and Bran Al'Vir, with the scales of office around his neck, and Harrow Luhan, till Elizabeth made him sit down. Even Sen Bui. The light saved me from men who think with the hair on their chests, though I don't know as there are any other kind. She gave a hearty sniff and looked up at him, an accusing glance. At any rate, I could see it would be another day, perhaps more, before they came to any decision, and somehow, I was sure we did not dare wait that long. So I called the women's circle together, told them what had to be done. I cannot say they liked it, but they saw the right of it, and that is why I am here, because the men of Edmonds Field are stubborn woolheads. They're probably still arguing about who to send, though I left word I would take care of it. Rand then asks what Moraine said to Nynaeve. She replied that it was more of the same, but also had questions about the boys to try and figure out, why they may be targeted. Specifically, she wanted to know if any of them had been born outside of the two rivers. Rand tensed up a bit, but tried to laugh it off, saying he hoped she assured her they were all Edmondsfield born. Nynaeve pauses for one extremely shifty heartbeat before saying, "Of course." Rand goes quiet, noticing that pause, thinking how Nynaeve knows he wasn't born there. She asks if he's alright, and Rand spills the beans to her about what Tam said he wasn't his son while he was in his fever dreams. "Oh, Rand." She stopped and took his face in both hands. She had to reach up to do it. "People say strange things in a fever, twisted things, things that are not true or real. Listen to me. Tam Althor ran away seeking adventure when he was a boy no older than you. I can just remember when he came back to Emmons Field, a grown man with a red-haired outlander wife and a babe in swaddling clothes. I remember Kyrie Althor cradling that child in her arms with as much love given and delight taken as I have ever seen from any woman with a babe. Her child ran. You. Now you straighten up and stop this foolishness." He asked her why she hadn't told Moraine, and she stated that it was none of that outlander's business. Rand asked her if either of the others had been born outside the two rivers as well, and then stopped himself, going on to say that it also wasn't his business. Nynaeve agreed, and then said that it might not mean anything at all, that Moraine may just be searching for any reason why the Trollocs were after them. He then grins and says, "Then you do believe us." And she tells him he's learned to twist words since being with Moraine. He asks her what she's going to do now, and she says, "For today, she's going to have a bath. As for the rest, we'll see." And that is where the chapter ends.
Quite so.
Nynaeve is here.
Nynaeve!
Yay!
Hey ho! Hey. So we get that big reveal and confirmation that Tam's fever dream is not just a fever dream of some sort, that Rand was in fact born outside of the two rivers. I personally always felt that confirmed what Tam always said, even if it's not the same story. You know what I'm saying?
I think I wrote down right when he, like he thinks to himself, I was born outside the two rivers. Like he's right, but only because he's already decided that he is. Um, like he already fears that that's the truth, and in doing so, he accepts it as the truth. But he's terrified of external validation of that.
Right.
Um, and I mean, when that happens, it's really easy to like corral evidence, even if the evidence doesn't necessarily point that way,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because sure, he wasn't born physically in within the two rivers, but that doesn't mean he's not two rivers born if Tam is actually his father, right?
Right.
That would still make him two rivers folk, would it
Right.
not?
Right.
Is it, or is it, is it more than lineage? Is it lineage and, place? But again, because he's already accepted it as the truth, and that then he's scared of it,
Mm-hmm.
but can't help but find that confirmation, I
Right.
think. But yeah, I
He
mean, physically, actually, literally, he was not born there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he doesn't handle the news of he doesn't handle the big changes well. And this goes back to, our first show episode and you talking about his pillars. This is confirmation of one of those pillars already cracking. And I think that's hard on him because I think he understands. He doesn't tell Nynaeve everything that Tam said. He simply says that Tam says he isn't his son. And knowing everything else that Tam said, Rand, I think, puts two and two together that, something's not adding up and the story's not real.
Mhm.
So we also in that exchange, learn a teensy tiny bit more about Carrie Althor, that, Tam had gone off and came home with a wife and a kid.
Right.
Mhm.
So that's how they met. And she said he went off seeking adventure. So we can probably also kind of infer that that's probably where he picked up the sword that Rand has now.
Mhm. Yeah.
Right.
To revisit again the thing about like his pillars disappearing, I think it's I try to remember all the time that Rand didn't ask for any of this. If this was like if I weren't already interested to see how he navigates the hero's journey, I this would suck as a hero's tale. Like it's not good. He doesn't like it. He doesn't want to do any of it. He
Right.
hates all of it. He hates what it reveals about himself. He hates what it reveals about his place in the world and the people around him and the world that he lives in.
Right, because his reality has been completely shattered.
Right. He didn't ask for that and he doesn't want it. He's doing it because he feels like he has to and he hates it the whole time. Like
Right.
that's fascinating to me, but if it weren't, this would be a shitty hero's tale.
The reluctant hero is also a trope, so.
It
Mm-hmm.
is.
That's
It
true, and he
is.
is one of those. And that
Truly.
the resolution, the resolution towards the hero, the call to heroism, the call to adventure is part of what makes that interesting as well. But yeah.
But when you think about it, out of all the Edmund's fielders, other than Egwene, they're all reluctant heroes,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah. None
So
of them wanted to. Mm-hmm.
none of them truly want to be there. They left because they wanted to save their friends and their family. And the bravado that they have shown on the road so far, as I said in the last episode, to me is just them trying to keep their own morale up and keep from succumbing to their own fears. But they don't want to be there.
My heart goes out to them, honestly. It like the
Yeah.
guilt that they must feel all the time.
Yep.
You know, it's maybe that's me projecting, but I like, if I knew that monsters had come looking for me and destroyed my friends' homes and they would come back and do it again or killed more people looking for me and I had to leave, that wouldn't erase any of the guilt that I
Right.
would feel.
Because it
Yeah.
already happened once.
Right. And it's
Because of
everything that
me.
has happened is just, it's their fault and all they did was be born. Like
Right.
that sucks.
Hmm.
Right. Which is absolutely, I mean, you can't get rid of the guilt, right? But like logically, it's not your fault. They made the decision to come after you and harm your family and friends, right? That
Mm-hmm.
is not your fault. Your existence, your very existence is not your fault. They made that decision. That's
Yeah,
on
but
them. But again, you can't, knowing that logically doesn't stop the guilt.
it's
Right.
that thing of it's not my fault, but it is because of.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
It's a really shitty place to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. On a lighter note, Matt's dad fucking called it
Yeah.
about,
Clocked it immediately. Is in case anybody doubted that he knew his son.
and
He's
I didn't mention it in the summary, but Matt just doesn't know how to take that answer.
uh-huh. Knowing that he had already done that, literally like an hour before.
Right. Maybe not even a full hour before.
Right.
Yeah, Matt and his bullshit. His dad knows him, clearly.
I don't know where he is, but I know he's getting himself in trouble.
Right.
Well,
Right. He's gonna get his ass beat by Outlanders. I think the exact wording is get his head thumped, but
mm,
he'd get his ass beat. For sure. Yeah, I just got a kick out of that. Like, Matt asks, she answers, and Matt immediately is just like, oops.
oh,
Like, if he hadn't gone, like, confused and quiet, the only other option would be the guilty face, and then Nynaeve would have clocked it, and the subject would have continued for a minute or two. But I feel like at that moment, he decided she's not going to find out that he has already done something like that. And he's probably making a mental note to say something to Rand about not telling her.
mhm. Actually, thinking about it, I laughed a lot reading this chapter more than I have any of the other ones. There's a lot of comedy in it, and
There is.
I don't know that there's necessarily meant to be, but there is.
Right.
Like, and it starts right at the beginning when Tom is like, "We don't have time for this," and he gets told to go juggle. Like, drag. drag him. Just
I will go ahead and say that this is kind of an introduction to Nynaeve is the perfect comedic straight man.
Oh my god, she is.
There is so much comedy around her because of her straight manness, and it's mwah.
And it's almost completely accidental comedy,
Mhm.
right? Like it's not even intended by the author, but it is there.
Yeah. Like when Lana's like, I'm very impressed, and she blushes. Me too, girl. Right. Tee-hee-hee.
That big old slab of man just complimented me. Oh.
Ooh, thank you.
And Rand clocking it. That boy is so fucking dense, but he catches that?
Right?
Are you kidding
It's
me?
so funny. Right. I get it. I get it.
This is one
I
of
too
those
live for
chapters.
validation.
This is one of those chapters I would give anything for to have Robert Jordan come back from the dead and rewrite it multiple times from all the other characters' point of view.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Matt, Perrin, and Egwene.
Mm.
Yeah.
I would love to read that chapter from their points of view. Because especially with Egwene, she's already in the goddamn room during the beginning of that chapter, so she would see stuff that the boys didn't.
Right.
And we would get probably her panicked thinking about keeping her hood up and hiding her hair and things like that. And I think it's really interesting that she did hide her hair because Rand called that in a previous chapter as well.
Uh-huh.
And
So
and
you know
she
Nynaeve is gonna
and
have something to say about it.
and she got all high and mighty about it. But now all of a sudden she's the little girl knowing that she's in trouble again. Right?
Mhm.
So it's interesting to see. Yeah, Nynaeve is absolutely going to have something to say about it, I'm sure.
And it's, I'm not surprised that Egwene would like not want to show her hair. I think I make this point a little bit later in my notes for this chapter, but it's really easy. It's much easier to, kind of reinvent yourself and say and commit your whole self to a new adventure and a new identity for yourself and do all of that when there isn't evidence of the person that you have been your whole life standing in front of you. It's much
Yes.
easier to say that you could be anybody that you want to, and then, here is the wisdom from your home here, a
Right.
week after you got to braid your hair, and here you are.
And like
Right.
not just it's not like Egwene is just any girl from Emmons Field. She was
Right,
Nynaeve's apprentice.
She was her
right,
protege.
right.
Right. So she's held not only to a higher standard, but also it's interesting when you talk about how not having, that proof of your previous, life or whatever in front of you, the boys don't count. Nynaeve is an authority figure. They are not.
Yeah.
And that is why she didn't mind doing it in front of them.
Right.
Right? The boys are litter mates. Nynaeve is an authority figure.
And now she's in a position where, she's transitioned from Nynaeve being her mentor to Moiraine is now her mentor.
Mm-hmm.
But now her old mentor is back and she's like, what?
It's a hero's decision sort of situation.
Hmm. Hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's, there's something to be said for that as well. The struggle to define who you are and make a name for yourself under
Yep.
your own power.
Yep.
Whether that's making a decision about what you want your life to be, um, or how you want to act around
Yeah.
people, or anything like that, what you want to do, um,
Mm-hmm.
regardless of who around you thinks that they have the authority to tell you who you are,
Right.
or what you should be.
Right. I think one of my favorite parts of this chapter is the full description that she gives Rand of the council meeting. And once again, our queen, Alicent Luhan, telling her husband to sit his ass down.
Shh, shh, shh. Grown-ups are talking.
Now, to be fair, out of all the names given on who wanted to go, he is the only one I would give the okay to. Like,
Right.
Bran has to stay and be mayor. Tam is not healthy enough, and Sen would die before he got a mile away because he's old and crickety.
Yeah. Harl
So,
Luhan could
like,
take care of himself.
right, he's the only one who could reasonably go out of those listed.
Listen, I mean, clearly,
And even his wife's like, sit
Allspet
your ass
is
down.
a bad bitch. She could just run the forge herself, I think.
Honestly, they could have sent her.
They should
Yeah.
have. Yeah.
Can you imagine if she had come with Nynaeve?
Hmm.
That would be interesting.
Mom?
Oh,
That
man.
would be
Like,
interesting.
Mortifying.
imagine that for Perrin.
She
Exactly.
shows
Yep.
she shows up with one of Luhan's hammers, the one that she was gonna take to the Trollocs.
Yeah.
She just
Yeah.
kicks in Perrin's door with the hammer raised.
Mhm.
Perrin Abara, get your ass on your horse. That would be so fucking funny. Actually,
Mhm.
if I could animate, I would absolutely animate a Wheel of Time abridged.
I want to rewrite the entire book series now with this change and see
Where
what
it
butterfly
goes.
effect happens.
Just abridged. Yeah. Or yeah. What
That would-
happens? Yeah. What happens if Perrin's mom is also there? Uh-oh.
Master Luhan would starve.
Mhm.
No, yeah.
Nah, I guess he could go to the inn, but honestly, he would still probably starve.
Yeah, no, he'd wind up getting fat because he'd be eating Mistress Alvier's honey cakes all the time. He'd get as big as Bran.
Oh my god, that'd be so funny. I gotta write a fanfic now. AU, Wheel Time AU. Just
Just shift one thread in the pattern and everything changes.
oh my god, that would be so funny. Elspeth Luhan. Oh man. One other thing I wanted to talk about is Tom's representation of the White Cloaks and the White Cloak questioners. It is very Spanish Inquisition.
Very
Literally.
that.
I mean, we all know
It's
history
that.
shows torture doesn't get
Uh-huh.
the truth. Torture gets the torturers whatever they want to hear to get them to stop. And that is exactly how Tom is representing it. They don't want the truth, they just want a confession. Yeah, it's a very Spanish Inquisition to me.
Yeah.
Nobody expects the children of the light.
Nobody expects the White Cloaks. Yeah. But yeah, quite. I mean, yes, that's exactly how the Inquisition worked. You know,
Right.
they wouldn't detain you if they didn't already think that you had committed the blasphemy or the sacrilege. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's even, I mean, besides the fact that the Inquisition was here with real people,
Right.
that makes it additional. You know, there's also the problem of like language, right? So and especially, you know, in the Americas, there was no way for indigenous people to defend themselves against charges according to a belief system they didn't even follow.
Right.
Right.
It's all of it is messed up. But the dynamic of it recreated here is also severely messed up.
What
Like
is
fanaticism will do that to you. That like you don't want the truth because you think you already know the truth.
what gets me is that, well, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the White Cloaks are from Ilion.
No, they are from.
Matt says it.
Is it Almadicia?
Yeah, one of them says. Matt or
Or is
Tom
that a
says it.
city?
Well,
Oh
okay.
no, I'm bad at geography.
In any case, you know, there's
I would
no
Google it, but I'd wreck a story for me.
No.
So
Don't
I will not be
Google
Googling.
nothing. There's no
I
Aes
will
Sedai
Google.
where the White Cloaks are from, right? We know this. It's been stated already. What gets me is that they're essentially inquisitioning in countries that are not their own. So, like,
Mhm.
where are the fucking laws, right?
Yeah, they're just like
We see the governor. They threaten. They want to take them to their camp, right there from the city.
Okay, I was right. They're from the country of Amadisia and
Amadisia.
located in the capital of Amador.
Amador. Amador is what I was thinking of, I think. I don't know where I got Ilion from, because Ilion is what they're talking about, the horn, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
the Great Hunt.
Yeah, I must have just mixed them up. With the starting vowels or something. I don't know. Anyway, but that is my point, in Amadisia, that's where they are from. There's no Aes Sedai. I'm sure they've got, the ruling body behind them there. They are part of the ruling body, probably. And then they go to other nations and try and force, walking in the light and their
Yeah, they're
inquisition
just
on,
this,
on others. Like, they're literally wanting to take them, threatening to take them because he laughed at them for, and that because he laughed at him for Matt's trick, and circling back around to Tom's explanation of that, like, they're fucking nuts.
yeah, they're a religious zealot paramilitary group that just can basically go wherever they want, because if you deny them, well, that must mean you're in the shadow.
Right. But like, it's clear that everyone knows they're troublemakers because the governor is limiting how many can be in the city, right? So they're they're not taken they're taken seriously, but they're not taken seriously in the sense that, like, they're believed. You know what I'm saying?
It's not that they're
Yeah.
right, it's that they're trouble.
Right. Right. It's that they're trouble. And again, where are the fucking laws to stop them from just randomly taking somebody?
I mean, I wish that, but that's an interesting question because where are the laws that say that missionaries can't go to other countries?
Right?
But what's crazy is that there are, and it didn't work. They just went anyway.
Right.
Like, that's even, what is it, Japan, that had that policy for centuries of totally closed contact, no
Uh-huh.
contact with other countries, and they still let missionaries in one spot
Yeah.
because they were gonna show up anyway.
Yeah. But like,
Gonna try to not get sidetracked on this, but I just saw the most mind numbing post from someone with, everything that's going on in
oh
Iran right
Lord.
now.
Oh Lord.
Mm.
Okay.
Someone said, the good news is that finally we can send missionaries to Iran for the first time in decades. Die. Just die.
Like what?
Ugh.
Only the
All right,
confidence that
get
comes from zealotry and absolute fanatic dedication to whatever it is that you're doing gives you the gall, the wherewithal. Like kids died. Kids died
Yeah.
children were murdered.
just for
Get
being
the
at school.
fucking bail money ready. I will be back in a minute.
Yeah.
Right.
Now this is
Right.
like
Oh my god.
and this is how the White Cloaks operate in the books too. Like
Exactly.
it's the exact same kind of
Exactly.
zealotry.
Art imitates life, and Robert Jordan clearly was very good about that when it came to the fucking White Cloaks.
Yeah.
It's the self-satisfied, like, uh, sort of entitlement to just go wherever you want to. The
Right.
idea
They
that you can
huff
just
their own farts.
quite so, indeed, yeah,
Clearly. Clearly.
just be like, of course I'm allowed to be here. I'm allowed wherever the light is allowed, right? No, actually, get out, die.
Right.
Um, yeah.
You know what? The light is allowed through this teeny tiny crack in the wall. If you can fit through that crack, you can come in.
Ooh,
Right?
body shaming.
Oh my god, that just made me think of that horror story from Japan where, like, the people have to, like, walk through, like, their body shaped crack in the mountain.
Oh my god, the enigma of Armigar Fault.
Yes,
Oh,
I love that one. But
oh,
that's
I
what it
think
made me
about that
just think
comic
of.
every day. I
It
think
lives
about it
rent
every
free in my
day.
head. I
This
loved
hole
that
is made
one.
for me.
This is my hole. It was made for me. Junji Ito, thank you so much. But oh my god. Oh my god. Dude, it changed my brain chemistry. Holy shit.
It was so dirty. This hole was made for me.
Ew.
He said it, and I immediately went to the gutter.
All
Please, we're
right.
talking about
Well, we are
horror here.
Anyway,
We are an
Moving
hour and a
on.
half into this recording and still have another chapter to go.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah, let's get back on track here.
I will say that I'm disappointed that we didn't get to see the girl fight. Damn it. Show it to me. I want to see it.
Show it to us, you cowards!
I will give you that you will have further opportunities in the future, so keep
Wonderful.
reading.
Wonderful. Chapter 17, Watchers and Hunters, proceeds under the sign of the Dragon's Fang once again. So far, it seems like this mark appears above chapters that involve, for varying reasons, doing things that draw attention, usually bad attention, which, if memory serves, is what putting the Dragon's Fang up somewhere is meant to do anyway. The chapter opens with Rand leaving Nynaeve to go to the common room of the Stag and Lion, eager to lose his grim thoughts and other people's laughter. However, there, Tom is performing again, telling stories from the Great Hunt of the Horn to a silent room, everyone spellbound, guests and employees included. The tales continue until Tom switches his harp out for the flute, and then it's time for music. He begins with The Wind That Shakes the Willow, which Rand notes seems popular in Baerlon as well as in the Two Rivers. It's a sad song, but I guess it's like the way that I sing along to Adele, even though all she does is make me cry. The next song is only one bucket of water, and now it's time to dance. The Emmons Field party sits this one out, but when Wild Geese on the Wing comes on, oh hot damn, this is my jam. Rand and Perrin get up and start dancing, leaving Matt to watch their stuff because you snooze, you lose. The dance begins, with Rand across from a girl who gives him a shy smile and then a wink that was not shy at all. I see you, girl. Okay. And everyone is smiling, except for one hating ass looking motherfucker with a scar across his entire face. Rand notices him, and he notices Rand noticing him, and Rand gets embarrassed, thinking that maybe the man is unable to smile because of the scar. I think he's just a hating ass looking ass bitch, but that's just me, maybe. The dance continues, and Rand notices the guy again, who was now looking like an angry ass, hating ass looking. Anyway, his next partner is Nynaeve, who we didn't even know got down like that. And then, of all
Shooketh.
people, he
Shooketh.
ends up right. Okay, go ahead, girl, get down. And then, of all people, he ends up dancing with Moiraine, who just smiles at him as he stumbles, like that would help. And then his next partner is Egwene, who Rand has danced with for years in a way that I'm sure is not at all metaphorical as well as literal. Her hair is tied back with a ribbon, not braided but not free falling, and neither of them speak to each other. Dancing at a funeral vibes, I think. After this, Rand sits down so Matt can have a turn, and Parrot sits back down as well, immediately asking if Rand saw Nynaeve dancing, and of course Rand did. He was literally there. Perrin says how Nynaeve never did any of the dances at home, and Rand wonders what the women's circle might say about the wisdom dancing. This seems insightful, but it also seems like another example of how, for him, the women's circle functions to restrain women, rather than give them a space to be autonomous and in a space that men cannot access. Whether that's how it is, or that's the only way he can conceive of it because he's not in it, I don't know. Anyway, the hating ass bitch is still looking at Rand this whole time, but Rand resolves to avoid looking back at him, aware that anything he might do would probably just make things worse. The dancing continues for some time, and after eating, the mates begin working again. They had to get back to work, unfortunately. Rand joins back in, dancing much better this time. He continues to not say anything to Egwene, though, and like at this point, get a fucking grip. But I guess it has only been like a day since the last time he tried to talk to her and got shut down. So whatever. Just fucking talk to each other. Jesus. Moiraine
Children.
leaves the room near midnight, and Egwene follows shortly after, though not without some apparent conflict over whether to stay with Nynaeve. Nynaeve does one more dance and then leaves as well. Like, haha, I can dance longer than an Aes Sedai, I guess. I didn't know this was a competition, but do you, girl? Soon after that, Tom puts the flute away, and then Lan comes to gather up Rand and the others. He tells them that they'll have to leave early in the morning, and Matt says, wonder of wonders, that there has been a Hayden ass looking motherfucker staring at him. And Rand says, oh my god, me too. Lan says, according to Master Fitch, that the guy is a spy for the Children of the Light. I was right, and it's not that that's just how his face is, by the way, but that he would be no worry to them. Rand does notice that Lan seems bothered by something, but if not the spy, then what? They leave the common room, most of them in a good mood, and Matt asks where Nynaeve will be sleeping. Tom says she'll be with Egwene and Maureen, of course, because what, she's going to sleep with her in a room with the boys? Not fucking likely. Rand says he's going to get some milk and hopes that it will help him sleep. Okay. And
He
Lan tells
needs
him that
some
something is
milk.
wrong. He needs some milk. And Lan tells him that something is wrong and not to go far, and that they'll be leaving in the morning, early in the morning, whether or not he's awake enough to sit up in the saddle. Lan, Perrin, Matt, and Tom then go upstairs, leaving Rand suddenly alone and lonely. He goes into the kitchen and gets a mug of milk. Mug. And as he's walking back out, jump scare, spit take, the fucking fade is here. Unmoving cloak, face pasty white and eyeless, oily black hair, and poreless skin. He must moisturize really well. Rand drops the mug and then backs away, wanting to run or call for help, but unable to do anything but stare into the eyeless face. The Fade immediately knows that Rand is one of the people they're looking for and asks where the others are, advancing on him. Above them, a clatter of boots draws its attention, and after apparently looking through the ceiling, maybe, it draws a sword that seems to absorb the light around it. Vanta Black Sword, I think. The Fade raises the sword to strike at Rand, but the blade stops before it hits him, and the Fade tells him that he belongs to the Great Lord of the Dark, a different sort of protection, perhaps, than what Moiraine provides. It turns and runs away into the embrace of the shadows, and disappears just as Lan appears with his own sword in hand, which seems to remind Rand, oh yeah, he's also got one of those. Like, babe, come on now. But I get it. Shit is mad scary, and he's been terrified of this thing since like page 4. Lan says they're leaving now, and sure enough, everybody comes down with their stuff packed up. Tom says he'll continue traveling with them if they don't care, and Lan says he can come with them or go to Shai Ol Ghul, which is so funny of him, actually. Like, you can come with us or go to literal hell. I don't care.
But we're
Moiraine then
going now.
appears. Right, we have to go right now. So go to hell or come with. Whatever. Moiraine then appears with Master Fitch, and then Egwene, and then Nynaeve. Moiraine is warning the innkeeper about coming trouble, but he's blithely unconcerned. Matt asks if Moiraine thinks Trollocs will come after them, as though they haven't been found by the thing that controls the Trollocs, and that it can send dark friends to track them more closely as they try to escape. Sir, bigger fish. They begin to leave, Rand falling into step beside Nynaeve, who apparently is coming with them after all. She asks if something had been there, and he tells her that a fate had come. She tells him she intends to see them back safely in Emond's Field, and she's not leaving until then. They prepare to leave, Rand handing Egwene her things when she's up on Queen Bella's back. He notices how afraid she looks and thinks at least she doesn't think it's an adventure anymore. He's immediately ashamed of this as soon as he thinks it, which he should be because that's fucking mean. He tries to talk to her, probably to ask her to go back with Nynaeve, who we literally just learned, mind you, is not going anywhere without all of them. But ultimately, he just apologizes and says he can't seem to think straight, which, me neither. I don't. I don't know what that's like.
Big same.
The innkeeper then sees them out. Right. The innkeeper sees them out, promising that he wouldn't tell anyone that they'd been there or where they'd gone. But Rand suspects that Much would tell anyone everything he could. Fairlawn is quiet as they make their way toward a gate, and everyone is clearly on edge. They get to the Camlin gate, where Lan begins pounding on it until a watchman appears. The watchman is unwilling to open the gate to let them leave. Gate stays closed, so nobody can come in. But Moiraine points out that doesn't say anything about people leaving, which, like, I guess not. But come on, girl. That that's barely even a loophole. Barely. Lan gives the watchman some gold, and he agrees to open the gate. As it opens, however, 5 white cloaks appear and demand to know why the gate is being opened. The watchman tries to tell them it's none of their business, because it's not. But one of them says that only where the Dark One reigns are the children of the light denied. He's immediately suspicious of them wanting to leave with wolves around, and the Dark One's handiwork seen flying over the town. Which this looks like the Drakkar might have been seen again. Griffs. Lan says their party is of no interest to the White Cloaks, who reply that everyone is of interest. And I'm not going to lie, at this point, I did have to stop and take some deep breaths, because when I tell you that my trauma was trauma-ing,
Mm.
the immediate assumption that by existing I'm doing something wrong, and an inability to explain to someone's satisfaction who had already decided that I was guilty, my whole body went terrible, awful. But like, there's not like a trigger warning for that, so I just had to take some deep breaths and then I was fine. But like, I hate them. I, I don't like them at all. They can all go die. Um, so Lynn gets the watchman to continue opening the gate because literally, who are these dudes? They don't run shit here. They have no legal authority about anything. Rand tries to make himself smaller to avoid being seen, and Streisand affects himself, unfortunately. It turns out the guy who had been talking this whole time, is in fact who Rand thought he was, Bornhold, who tells the watchman that they're dark friends and threatens to report him to the governor or take him to interrogate him, just like the Inquisition. How nice. He does say that unless they can take the Emmons Field party to be interrogated, they'll take the watchman, at which point Moiraine steps it right the fuck up, as she should. Literally got chills. Get him. This does, of course, reveal her as an Aes Sedai, and Bornhold strikes at her with his sword. She intercepts the strike, and he gets thrown backward into his companions, sword bent at 90 degrees. Enjoy your fucking boomerang, loser. Moiraine continues to use the power to make herself massive, tall as the wall surrounding the town, and Lan yells at them all to run. They get a ways away, and Rand turns back to see Moiraine now tall enough to step over the wall, and the gate begins to close. Once she's over the wall, she's back to normal, though Egwene is like, oh my god? And Moiraine is like, what? You didn't see anything. Nynaeve then tries to say this is no time for games, and Moiraine agrees. They've lost what they gained at the Stag and Lion, she says. Discretion, perhaps? Secrecy? I mean, they have been well and truly noticed. They begin on their way again, though not at a gallop this time. But after an hour or so, Matt looks back and cries out, and when they all look, they see a mass of flames coming from part of the city. Moiraine immediately identifies it as the Stag and Lion, and Lan says that perhaps they're lucky, them being the Emmons Field party. When Egwene questions this, Moiraine points out that if they, presumably being the Fade and whoever else, whoever set fire to the inn, went after the innkeeper, perhaps they didn't notice her becoming Godzilla for a little bit, or where they left from. Nynaeve accuses Moiraine of being the reason that the Stag and Lion is up in smoke, and Lan retorts that it's because of Rand, Matt, and Perrin, which, like, he's right, but also that's mean. Don't be mean. Moiraine agrees with Nynaeve again, but points out her options. Option 1 is to go back by herself and help, but not too much, or she'd draw attention to the people she helped who wouldn't appreciate it with the White Cloaks around. Going back by herself would also leave only Lan to protect them, and it would take more than just him if the Murdral and more Trollocs found them. Option 2 would be for all of them to go back, which would of course bring attention from the White Cloaks, in addition to whoever just fucking set a building on fire. Nynaeve says she would do something if she were Moiraine, but Moiraine lays it out. Going back would give the Dark One exactly what he's looking for. They're in a war, but she says she will have enough gold sent that can't be tracked back to where it came from, that Master Fitch can rebuild the inn, and enough gold for anyone who's been hurt. But again, more help than that, or hope that came too obviously from an Aes Sedai, would only draw more trouble. So the party begins on their journey again, and Rand hopes that Min is alright, which is so funny to me because all she did, again, was make him uncomfortable the whole time. Eventually, a couple of hours before dawn, Lan lets the party stop and gives him an hour to rest while he keeps watch. Not even to sleep as much as the rest of them must be nice. Not for me anymore. I turned 30 and my body said, hey, go the fuck to sleep. And I do sleep. I do go to sleep when my body says so. We don't do all-nighters anymore. As they all lay down, Matt says, I thought we were safe, Rand. Not a sign of anything since we crossed the Taren, and there we were in a city with walls around us. I thought we were safe. And then that dream, and a fade. Are we ever going to be safe again? I'm so sorry, babe, but no. Not, Rand says, at least until they get to Tarvalon. Perrin questions whether even that will bring them safety, but Rand just says they should get some sleep. It's not a great campsite, but Rand does fall asleep eventually, waking up with bruised ribs and, importantly, no memories of more dreams like the one he had in the Stag and Lion. An hour later, they're up and on their way again, tired all except for Lan, who had changed back into his cool cloak of many colors. He stays expressionless, but his eyes look around constantly, as though he expects an ambush, because you don't gotta get ready if you stay ready. And the chapter ends.
What a chapter.
What a chapter.
That chapter is pretty big oof.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we start out with everyone, like, just having a good time, dancing,
I love that.
and then, boom, danger.
Which seems like a formula that we've seen before.
Like the emotional whiplash.
I'm getting deja vu because was it not that Tom performed and then they went home and then the Trollocs attacked?
Yeah, it's like Winter
Memory
Night all
serves.
over again.
Yeah.
It's Electric Boogaloo.
I want to talk about the fact that Moraine quite literally decided to take up space.
As she should.
Right.
As she should. Moiraine, they could never make me hate you, girl.
This
Never.
little
She
5 foot
just like
nothing woman growing to be able to step over a city wall.
right. Just casually step over. And how I picture it in my head is like as her other leg is coming over and her first leg is coming down, like she's already shrinking down.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
That's how I picture it
But,
in my head anyway. And it's really fucking cool.
yeah. Like I
That
said,
is a hell of a CGI effect.
yeah, right. Literally, I got chills. She said, "You will take me to your camp, White Cloak? You will question me?" Ooh, no,
All right,
sorry.
bet.
I said, I got shivers. Y'all are going to learn to quit fucking around when you're an ant and she's a steel-toed boot. Okay? She's not the one to fuck with.
Truly is not.
I love her. Whatever.
She is never the one. It is never the day.
Not today and not tomorrow.
No. I appreciate her frustration with Master Fitch. And, like, she did what she could to keep them safe when they left. Right? She can't do much more than be like, just tell them this and they will leave you the fuck alone. You know, and I feel like that his willingness to want to help is what got him fucked over.
Maybe also his complacency.
Possibly.
Because it's, we keep running into that nobody really seems to understand the stakes,
Right.
of the situation that they're in. And Maureen and Lan are constantly reminding all of them, like, hey,
Right.
someone is hunting you. Okay, they want to kill you.
Right.
If that, even. Or worse, right? Because in this world, there are things worse than death, it looks like.
Yeah.
Yep.
So,
Sounds like it.
like, hey, pay attention. And nobody's doing it. And they're like, hey, be careful. And he's like, it'll be fine. And okay, now what? Enjoy your ashes, I guess.
I think it's a repeated thing, and we literally see it twice within like 5 pages of this goddamn book. This chapter alone. Of basically Moraine's frustration at everybody else not seeing the bigger picture.
Mm-hmm.
Because even after she has that conversation with Fitch, and they leave, and then they realize that the second line is on fire, she basically tells them that they are not seeing the bigger picture. We can't go back and help, right?
I know that you want to, and like I could, but there's no scenario in which me or us going back to help is better for any of us.
Right.
It's,
or
so she
really
says,
any of them.
Yeah, she lays it out, and it's like, so which would you do if you were me?
Well, I would do something. Well, what would you do?
Yeah, that's easy to say when you're not the one who has to make the decision.
Right. Because heavy is the head. You have to make those calls. I think that her being willing to pay to have the thing rebuilt and to pay for people's injuries and stuff is acceptable, especially given, the sort of era timeline they live in. This kind of goes back to the sinking of the ferry too for me. Obviously, if someone dies, money can't really take care of that. Right? So
Right.
headcanon has to be that nobody dies in that fire.
Right. But again, she did warn him.
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
There's only so much that you can do for people who won't listen.
Right.
Right.
No matter how good their
say,
intentions.
Which is not to say that Maureen can do no wrong or anything. I'm sure she can
Of course,
somewhere,
right.
somehow, possibly, maybe. I don't know. I'll believe it when I see it. But like, it's
she was wrong to not step on the white cloaks.
True. That's true. How could you? How could you let them live? How dare you?
Right. But other than that, it's fine.
Yeah. Other than that, she's like perfect record. Whatever. Totally fine. But she clearly knows more about the world and about what's going on than the people around her.
Yeah.
And so it makes sense that she would be frustrated when people don't listen and to only be willing to extend herself a certain amount to help. Because
right.
She also knows how Aes Sedai move in the world outside of the White Tower. Like
Uh-huh.
it's at least. Right? We haven't been there yet, except for in Grand Stream. But you know, there's people
Right.
don't like them out there. She has to be mindful of that, and that's even we already saw that she's right because of how people at Emmons Field reacted to her helping people.
Yeah.
Right.
They tried to run her out. Like,
Even after they benefited from her assistance. Right.
right, even after she literally saved Tam's life. Like,
And in addition to having to move through the world carefully because of who she is, she also has to be careful about extending her help and not overexerting herself for the dangers around. She could go back and help to a certain extent, but pretending she didn't have to worry about like hiding that she's Aes Sedai, right? She can go back and then help as much as she wants, but then by the time she catches up to the others, she's drained again and can't offer any protection.
right.
Right.
Or
So she's
the white
gotta
cloaks would take her. Yeah.
exactly. So she has to you know, conserve that strength too. And we have to keep that in mind for her power level, basically her power levels.
Because
I
the
don't know if they're over
priority,
9,000 or not, but
yeah, the priority is to get them all to,
Tarvalin alive.
right.
And apparently that includes Nynaeve now too.
It sure does, which I can't say I'm too upset about because one, she's a whole lot of fun. And two, this is a sausage fest, and I'm a little bit tired of it. Thank you. More girls. Yeah.
Yeah, the count is up to 5 men and 3 women in the party now.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're getting there.
Even those numbers out. Let's
It's
Because
just
obviously
you don't
kill
have to.
Tom and
Yeah, I was
that'll
gonna say you
even
don't
it
have to
out a
change
little
the
more.
number of people in the party, but we do need to change the gender distribution. However, you might. Yeah, but she gets out of the town and she's back to normal. And Egwene is like, "Hey, you were just the size of a building," and she was like, "Was I?
No, it wasn't.
Stop, stop it!
Egwene, what the fuck was that? Moraine,
And
what was what?
just
What the fuck was what?"
this
Anyway,
perfect example of Aes Sedai double speak, where
mhm.
she's just like, the mind plays tricks in the night. The eye sees what is not there. It's like you could be talking about anything.
Right? No, no, girl. I watched you walk over
Not
that wall
your
just now.
mind, but the mind.
Right, right. No, I saw what I saw.
How is she double speaking and gaslighting at once?
Right. Gaslight gatekeep girl boss, as she should.
Which is exactly what she did, just in the other order. She gate kept, girl boss, then gas
I
kept.
was gonna say girl gate, gaslight.
Girl boss, gatekeep, gaslight. That's it.
Quite so. She did all three. Yes. She's wonderful.
She also
She's
gate
perfect.
crashed.
But yeah, no, she said, I don't know what you're talking about. That's crazy though. Huh.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Crazy. Shall we ride?
Mm-hmm. Anyway, we gotta go. I did feel quite sad about Matt when they lay down. Like, oh bud.
Oh, I know.
It's almost like that's what they've been trying to tell you the whole goddamn time, actually. No. No. Welcome to the fucking adventure, dude. No.
Right.
You're not safe.
Where have you been the whole time? And he does this before. He thinks they're safe in the city. He thinks they're safe, 6 days out after crossing the river? And I'm sure it's just, that truly hopeful thinking type of thing because he is scared, so he convinces himself, but
Right. So, here we are. Also, was not expecting poor Rand. He stays ending up in situations. Like he walked out of the kitchen and the Fade was there. What?
Yeah, like
Oh my god. Oh my god. So yeah, of course he was shocked and couldn't say anything.
I would simply perish
Yeah.
on the spot right there.
Yeah.
Fuck that.
What? Dude. That. And he keeps looking around and finding himself alone. I'm like, oh, guys, buddy system. Don't leave him by himself. Not even for a second. They went upstairs. He went into the kitchen, and 3 minutes later, he came out and the Fade was there. Don't leave him alone for a second. Not any of you. Buddies.
Okay, can we talk about Nynaeve's competitive dancing against Moraine? Like, I need to see the two of them have a dance battle.
Yes. Hmm. Like step it up. Yeah.
Like,
Dance off, bro.
Hmm. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Again, hard cut. Show me the dance battle.
just two of them voguing the house down boots.
The house
Yes.
down boots. God. Yes. Boots the boots down, or whatever the kids say. I love it. I would love to see that. I guess that's what fan fiction will be for. But
Yep.
I am not interacting with him.
I'll add it to my Mistress Luhan fanfiction.
Perfect. As soon as I read the entire series, I'll read that too.
Tom just comes out like Pray Tell from Pose.
I should just start writing a fanfiction chapter by chapter as we read.
Do it.
An AU.
Yeah, all of the things that we wish happened.
Right.
That can be for when we make a Patreon.
There you go. They can read it. Or I
Mhm.
can read it, like, they can listen, whatever. Yeah. I'm sure you guys saw, I was just on the phone. I do need to go. Something has come up.
I was going to say, I think
So-
we're pretty much done anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we're good at this point. We're coming up on 2 hours anyway.
Yeah. Whew. You'll be able to cut a good chunk out, I think.
I mean, I didn't. Yeah, there's not anything else that I really wanted to say that I haven't already said. So I think
Yeah.
we can. I think we're good.
Cool.
Alrighty, well, thank you for listening to this episode of Easing the Badger.
Tune in next week. We've got chapters, 18, 19, 20?
Indeed.
All right. I am 100% losing track. That was a guess. Thank you all for listening.
Thanks,
Bye.
Sharon.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Easing the Badger. To continue reading along with us every other Tuesday, please make sure you subscribe to our show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or anywhere else you find podcasts. Make sure you leave us a 5-star rating and a review where possible. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Blue Sky at EasingBadgerPod, and send us an email at easingthebadgerpod@gmail.com. Our link tree will be in the show notes. Theme music is Magic Tavern by Alexander Nakarada.